Thank you very much. Let's take our seats. And thank you very much, PCS. Your Excellency, our elder in the region, Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, the President of the Republic of Uganda, Mr. Samaila Subairu, our good friend, President and CEO of the Africa Finance Corporation, Ministers present, CEOs, distinguished participants, delegates, ladies and gentlemen, good morning and welcome. I take this opportunity on behalf of the people and government of Kenya to welcome you all to Nairobi for this most consequential gathering that goes to the heart of our continent's future. The Africa Infrastructure Summit convened by the Africa Finance Corporation is a launchpad for what we want to see into the future as Africans. I also extend a very special welcome to the Africa Finance Corporation as it makes Nairobi its second home. Welcome to Nairobi. Kenya is immensely honored to host the AFC's first office outside its headquarters in Lagos. The theme of this conference, to my mind, is the most critical and vital conversation on our development as African nations and also as a continent. We meet against the backdrop of global economic shocks and disruptions arising from the war in the Gulf. From the war in Ukraine a few years to the war in the Gulf in a few weeks. Africa today produces approximately 10 million barrels of oil per day, which is about 10% of global output. Yet, paradoxically, we remain net importers of petroleum products to the tune of 120 million metric tons annually at a cost of about $90 billion. At an average export price of $75 per barrel, Africa's crude production is valued at roughly $270 billion each year. However, it is this same production, if this same production were refined domestically and exported as finished products at an average price of US $800 per ton, it would generate over $500 billion. This represents foregone income of about $230 billion, which is nearly 7.5% of our GDP from just one resource. This does not even account for the additional gains from downstream industries such as plastics and fertilizers, which we currently import and which we could add another 2 to 3% of our GDP. Excellencies, what point am I trying to make? Africa's place in global trade is defined by a structural imbalance that requires our urgent attention. According to the UN Trade and Development, the continent continues to export predominantly raw materials, minerals, fuels, and agricultural commodities, while importing the very products manufactured from those same resources. In many of our economies, over 60% of exports remain commodity-based, while we import nearly 3 times more manufactured goods than we export. It should not surprise us, therefore, that manufacturing has stagnated at about 10% of GDP for the last 2 decades. As long as this pattern persists, our growth will remain constrained, our economies will remain vulnerable, and our full potential will be unrealized. The leaders of the 50s and 60 years ago may be excused. Our continent then had a population of only 350 million people, largely rural and with limited purchasing power. Today, with a population of 1.5 billion people and a middle class of between 300 and 350 million people, we have no such excuse. We cannot continue to export raw materials and importing finished products made from them. The conversation we will have over the next 2 days must therefore be truly definitive on the way forward in terms of manufacturing and value addition. In this room, we have political leaders, we have industrialists, captains of industry, financiers, everyone required to move this agenda from aspiration to implementation. That is why I propose 3 key action points. First, we must strengthen our political resolve to deepen regional integration. Our countries possesses complementary endowments, including natural resources in one country, energy resources in another country, and an optimal location for industrial processing in the next country. This must be connected through infrastructure, roads, rail, ports, and electricity grids, so that raw materials and intermediate goods can move freely across borders. Equally important, the benefits of such integration must be shared equitably, ensuring that national boundaries do not impede the full realization of a common market with the free movement of goods, capital, and people. Second, we must establish regional platforms for strategic industries. It is worth recalling that the European Union began as the European Gold and Steel Community in 1951. Our East African community is richly endowed with renewable energy, the full spectrum of minerals driving the global energy transition, including copper, cobalt, nickel, manganese, graphite, lithium, and rare earth elements in Kenya, in Uganda, in Tanzania, in Burundi, in Rwanda, in DRC. We're all members of one community. I remember last evening talking to the president of Burundi on the possibilities that exist with the rich resources that exist in Burundi. I remember discussing with President Samia Suluhu this week. I put a phone call to President Museveni last week on this whole setup. And I want to thank you, Mzee, for finding time to be here. So that we can demonstrate leadership at the highest level to move this process forward. We must now move deliberately to pool these resources and position ourselves competitively in the global green manufacturing arena. However, we cannot achieve competitiveness without affordable energy, making large-scale investment in renewable energy an urgent priority, and ensuring that the resources that we have in our region, including the oil we have in Uganda, the little oil we have in Kenya, we must find the mechanism to leverage on these resources and drive our industrialization. Third, we must harness African capital. As the saying goes, he who pays the piper calls the tune. industrialists here know the meaning of that phrase better than all of us. Our ambitions will remain unrealized if we continue to depend on external capital whose primary interest is securing raw materials for their own industries. We must say that with clarity. We must therefore strengthen our regional development finance institutions, including the Africa Finance Corporation. And I want to inform the Africa Finance Corporation fraternity that as you set up office in Nairobi, the Kenya government is going to enhance its equity by $25 million. As a demonstration of the confidence we have in African financial institutions. I know the president of Afrexim Bank is here with us. When I came into office, we enhanced our equity in Afrexim Bank by $40 million. I know my friend Tadesse is here. We have already discussed how Kenya, being among the highest shareholders of TDB Bank, how we are going to enhance our equity and shareholding in Trade and Development Bank. And we are doing it intentionally and deliberately because we know that they understand us better than anybody else. We do not have to explain ourselves in windy statements and languages. They understand us. They understand where we are. And they know us better than anybody else would. And I want to assure you that we will continue as leaders in this continent to build our own African financial institutions, give them the capacity. And I know we haven't done enough. You can count on us, we will do more. Until we develop the muscle for us to be able to drive our own industrialization and our own development. I say so with benefit of experience. And I will say this, why we must believe in ourselves. I want to say this with clarity. We must. If we are to make progress, it begins with us believing in ourselves. And this is a message I have been having a conversation with the people of Kenya. We must believe in ourselves. When I came into office, I will give you two examples, if you can indulge me. When I came into office, we had a serious fuel crisis in the country. There were queues in our petrol stations. The first lot of people to come to see me, even before I left my former office, were oil marketers. And they told me, Mr. President-elect, we are facing a stock out. We do not have dollars. We have a crisis. And it became my first assignment, maybe baptism by fire, on my first day in office. And we figured out with my team, how do we deal with this? And I remember reaching out to friends who, for this meeting I will not mention, good friends of mine who are running multinational banks and telling them, oh, we need to do this. Little did I know that many of them were already figuring out how they are going to make money when the dollar went to 200 shillings Kenya shillings to $1. They're already thinking how to make money from foreign exchange. I mean, I'm looking at how do we solve a Kenyan problem. It is only one bank, one Kenyan bank, Kenya Commercial Bank, that was willing to issue letters of credit and stand with us at that very critical moment. Do you know what happened? We not only solved that problem in a very permanent way. Today we have a G2G framework that many other countries have come to learn from us. Malawi have been here to learn from us. Burundi have been here to learn from us how we did it. So we solved the problem. But you know what? Kenya Commercial Bank made tons of money in the process. Their share price went from 17 shillings to now 74 shillings. You know, if there was a case for believing in ourselves, Kenya Commercial Bank, being a Kenyan bank, believed in us. We believed in them. The outcome is a win-win. We not only solved our problem, but we built our bank even more. That's one example. Example number 2. When I made a proposition to the people of Kenya on a matter that has been with us for a long time, on how do we deal with the challenge of housing. And it's a conversation we've had for long as Kenyans, possibly 25, 30 years of conversation. And I did make a proposition to the people of Kenya that it was necessary for us to do this using our own resources, mobilizing domestic capital for us to be able to undertake our housing program. There was a big debate, but today we have done what we couldn't do with money borrowed from this place and that place, talking to this guy and the other guy and one bank and another one. Using our own domestic resources, today we are building, concluding some of them, 240,000 housing units, with a pipeline of 700,000 housing units. We are building hostels for 180,000 students in our universities and Tibet, and we are building 600 modern markets around Kenya with our own resources. Using a housing fund derived from a housing levy, we have signed contracts for $4 billion. $4 billion. Not a single shilling borrowed from anybody. Domestic resources built by Kenyans, raised from Kenya. Believing in ourselves. I make this case firmly that the challenges we face, the aspirations we have for the future, we have the solutions within us. And that's why I'm very happy that we have in our midst not just Africa Finance Corporation, we have the leadership of Afri-Exim Bank, we have the leadership of Shelter Afrique, we have the leadership of ADB, we have the leadership of Trade and Development Bank. These are institutions that we must mark for the future, and we must invest in them and work with them. Look, Nigeria has been a producer of oil for all the years that we know. Yet, when you went to Nigeria, there were queues of people looking for fuel in petrol stations for a long time. Until one African step forward and build a refinery. Aliko Dangote here. The solution wasn't in Europe. It wasn't in Asia. The solution was in Nigeria. For a problem that disturbed Nigeria for years. I dare say, ladies and gentlemen, we have this, in this room, we have the political leadership, we have the industrialists, we have the financiers to transform our continent, and we must waste no time looking any further. In Kenya, we have established a national infrastructure fund and are in the process of creating a sovereign wealth fund, following in the footsteps of some of our peers on the continent, including, I know, what has been done in Nigeria, Ghana, South Africa, and in many other places. Through these instruments, we aim to mobilize public and private, as well as domestic and foreign capital, to fund major priority projects in the tune of $40 billion over the next decade. When you heard my minister here speak, he said, we already have mobilized $3 billion, just in a short span. And we are looking at the people in this room, how we are going to work together to leverage that money so that we can drive the issues we are discussing here. Infrastructure, transport, logistics, infrastructure. Because Kenya's infrastructure ambition are bold. We seek to expand our road network by over 28,000 kilometers, more than double what we have today over the next 7 years. We also aim to generate an additional 10,000 megawatts, nearly 3 times our current installed capacity. And that is to support modern technology, power industrialization, and sustain economic expansion. At the same time, we are strengthening our export-led agricultural transformation and food security through large-scale irrigation anchored on the construction of at least 50 mega dams to bring an additional 2.5 million acres of land under productive use. Listening to my friend, the CEO of AFC, he did mention very clearly that we have some of the largest agricultural lands in our continent. How do we leverage on those? Why is Africa still a hungry continent? Why is Africa still defined by hunger and imports from all manner of places when we can do it right here? These are not merely national priorities. They are integral to the broader continental agenda of industrial transformation through manufacturing and value addition. For far too long, the economic destiny of our continent has been shaped by others. While historical injustices from colonialism to inequities in the global economic order are real, we must also acknowledge that other regions have faced similar challenges, but they have risen above them. We're not the only ones that have faced these challenges. We are constrained, however, only by the extent that we accept the status quo through acquiescence, complacency, and limited ambition. Too often, as a continent, we have settled for what is rather than what could be. For far too long, we have accepted the average, the ordinary. That must change, good people. We must raise the scale of our ambition and refuse to be defined by what is merely functional. The time has come for Africa to take full control of its destiny. Many of the nations we admire today, from Singapore to South Korea and even Japan, once stood where we stand today, constrained, and uncertain of their place in the world. But they made choices that made the difference. Through disciplined leadership, bold policy, and unrelenting commitment to progress, they rewrote their future. And they did not do so over centuries. They did so within a single generation. In just 3 to 4 decades, they moved from fragility to strength, from limitation to global competitiveness. That is the lesson before us, good people. Transformation is neither accidental nor a miracle. It is deliberate. It is intentional. And it is entirely within reach if we have the resolve to pursue it, to reach higher, and to reject the average. This is our assignment as the current generation of Africans, leaders, business people, entrepreneurs. This is our assignment. And this is the job that we must do without equivocation, without wavering, and without hesitation. It is now, ladies and gentlemen, or never. We must get it right. And I'm very happy that we are meeting at a time like this, when it is so obvious to us that we are paying very high prices because of a war in the middle of nowhere, which we have no control over, when we could as well have our own resources here. I want to thank President Museveni for refusing to accept easy choices. He had a choice. He had a choice to allow the oil in Uganda to go the way others would have wanted. But I remember having a conversation with President Museveni, and allow me, Mzee, to say this. When I visited him once, and I asked him, Mzee, what's going to happen about the oil reserves that you have, because it's taken time. And I remember Mzee telling me, look, young man, then I wasn't even president. He told me, you see, some of these people you see here, if we give them a chance, they will sell this oil at a throwaway price and go and buy perfume. Those are his words, and they have never left my mind. A case of people making shortcuts, easy decisions, and in the process, sabotaging the destiny of a nation and a region. I am happy that we will be discussing how we are going to use our resources, whether it is the oil we have in our region or the minerals we have in our region, not to export to others, but to industrialize our own region, our countries. When the other day we divested from Kenya Pipeline because we wanted to unlock the value of Kenya Pipeline and use it for the transformation of the country, President Museveni called me and said, I want to buy 50% of Kenya Pipeline. And he told me, I don't care the price. That's how serious he was. When some other pessimists in Kenya were saying, oh, the price is very high, I don't know. President Museveni could see beyond the price. He could see the opportunity of transforming our nation, our region together. Mzee, I want to assure you that the same way you invested in Kenya Pipeline, Kenya is going to invest in your refinery and in the future of our resources together. And hopefully we can bring all the other countries in our region to see the value, not in the short-term benefit you get from something cheap from somewhere else, but in the benefit of building something for the future that will not only earn you money today, but earn you opportunities tomorrow.